Imagine, the gentle morning sunlight is spreading across the plains of Karnataka. In the distance, horses neigh. Soldiers are polishing their weapons. The roar of cannons has not yet been heard anywhere. But inside a fort, something is about to happen whose echo will be heard for centuries in India's struggle for independence. This is not just imagination. This is the true story of 1824. It is the story of a woman who defeated the British East India Company in open battle, who shook empires with her intelligence and courage, whose name is still cited today as an example of India's feminine power. Welcome to this chapter of history's immortal heroines. This is the true story of Rani Chennamma. This story does not begin with a throne. It begins with a girl born in the village of Kittur, Karnataka, in 1778. Her name was Chennamma. When Chennamma was 4 or 5 years old, her upbringing was not like that of other girls. Her father and family did not give her only the innocence of childhood. They gave her confidence, physical skills, an understanding of warfare, and the basics of strategy. Balance on horseback, the edge of a sword, the pull of a bow. These activities were much more than just games for her. They were the early foundations of her destiny. At a time when most girls were confined to their attire, Chennamma bravely competed with boys in the field. And it was then that people around her began to look at her with respect and awe. At the age of 15, she was married to Raja Mallasarja Desai, the ruler of the Kittur kingdom. Kittur was not a vast empire, but it was a prosperous, strong, and strategically important land. The fort, treasury, and the state security system here were considered honorable compared to many other principalities in South India at that time. After marriage, Chennamma did not become a mere queen. She became involved in all aspects of governance. She paid attention to the organization of the army, participated in state affairs, and kept a close watch on the future of the kingdom. Time passed. After the death of King Mallasarja, Chennamma took on the responsibility of governance and maintained peace in the kingdom. But soon, fate presented another test. In 1816, her son Shivlingappa also passed away prematurely. At that time, the practice of adoption was relevant and respected among Indian princely states as it ensured succession. In 1824, following that tradition, Chennamma adopted a boy named Shivlingappa as her son and declared him the heir so that the future of the kingdom would be secure. But this very decision sparked a major political storm. The British East India Company, which had already strengthened its hold over many parts of India, refused to recognize this adoption. Their argument was that since there was no biological son, the kingdom belonged to the British. This was the very policy that later came to be known as the Doctrine of Lapse. But in 1844, it was a bitter political move to ignore the traditional Indian rules of inheritance. Chennamma corresponded with the British officials. She tried to explain that the practice of adoption had been followed for centuries, but her request was rejected. Collector St. John Thackeray and Commissioner Chaplin gave a final warning: hand over the treasury, remove the adopted son, and accept British rule. But Chennamma's response was clear: I will not give up my soul, my kingdom, or my land. The day of October 21st, 1824 was recorded in history. In front of the walls of Kittur Fort stood the British Army, modern artillery, trained soldiers, and the belief that victory was certain. But under Chennamma's leadership, the forces of Kittur were ready, with strategy, patience, and determination. They were not just waiting. They were ready to strike back. The battle began. Horses galloped, arrows were fired, swords clashed, and Thackeray was killed. The British officers Sir Walter Elliot and Stevenson were captured, and eventually the Queen released them when the British promised peace. This was a unique decision because even after the war, the Queen chose to act with honor and hope. But the British did not keep their promise. They returned again with a large army, cannons, and modern war equipment. The second phase of the battle began, and the walls of Kittur were besieged. Here was another fact that changed the course of the war. Some people inside the fort committed treason and adulterated the gunpowder supply. The cannons became useless, but their spirit did not break. Cracks appeared in the fort walls, but the queen and her commanders, Sangoli Rayana, Guru Siddhappa, and Amatur Balappa, resisted until the very last moment. Finally, on December 5, 1824, control of the fort fell into the hands of the British. Chennamma was captured and imprisoned in the Belhongal fort. There, she endured harsh conditions for 4 years of her life. Limited food, illness, and lack of proper security. But she never lost her spirit. On February 21st, 1829, she wrote the final chapter of her life, without fear, without regret. But her resistance did not end there. Her trusted commander Sangoli Rayana waged guerrilla warfare. With the support of local farmers, he continued to harass the British and tried to restore Shivlingappa to the throne. For this, he was eventually captured and hanged in 1831. But by then, the echoes of her revolution had spread to many villages and towns. Even today, in 2026, Rani Chennamma's name remains synonymous with honor and inspiration. Statues of her have been installed in Kittur, Belagavi, Belhongal in Karnataka, and in the Parliament House in Delhi. Every year, people remember her day of victory and her sacrifice. But the most important thing is that she shows us that freedom is not just about struggle, but is the result of perseverance, honor, and self-confidence. When you face difficulties in life, when circumstances tell you to compromise because it's easier, remember Chennamma, who once said, "I will not give up my land and my rights." The story of this great heroine of history does not end here. It resonates within every person who stands with courage, who does not bow before injustice, and who listens to the voice of their soul. If you found this incredible story truly inspiring, please take a moment to like it. Share it with all your friends and family. And be sure to write in the comments below. Hail the brave Queen of Kittur.